him at the office.
Yeah. I'm muting you.
Yes.
Yep. David Callahan isn't going to be here. I don't know about Stephen Welch and Campbell. But I know this is an unusual time, and I know we have to finish promptly because somebody else gets the Zoom baton or whatever magic takes place there. So we'll get started here in just a minute. Thank you for members of the public and proponents of warrant articles for being with us. Let me start by calling the meeting to order. And as you know, we still are operating under the governor's executive order related to the COVID pandemic. That means we're providing access through Zoom methods, as you're all very familiar with at this point. We've moved everybody over, and if there's additional people who want to attend, Megan will keep an eye on that, and I will too, and we'll try to accommodate them. Let me take attendance here for the record. Members of the planning board, Fritz McClure.
Aye, present.
Dave Iverson.
Here.
John Trudell.
Here.
Judith Wagner here, and our staff, Megan Trudell.
Here.
And Leslie Snell.
Here.
And I see members of the public, including several who are going to be presenting about their proposals. Linda Williams, Brian Ryder, John Bartlett, Emily Molden. So I think we can get started. And as I said, we have to end promptly. I'm hopeful this won't have to be a lengthy meeting, however. For members of the public or those with warrant articles to be reviewed, just want you to know we appreciate your being here and appreciate receiving the materials that you prepared in advance. The process will be that we'll have staff do a brief review after we approve the agenda, and then we'll let you speak and then have questions from members of the board. Okay, is there approval of the agenda? We've got the agenda for Megan that has 4 zoning proposal for the warrant, and then additional comments, public comments, and winding up after that. Is there a motion to approve that agenda?
So moved.
John moved, Dave seconded, roll call. John.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Judith. Aye. All right. This is a public hearing, so that means not only individuals who are presenting a proposal will be heard, but anybody else who's in the audience who'd like to be heard will also have a chance to do that. I should add that I now see Stephen Welch, who's an alternate member of the planning board, has joined us. So welcome, Stephen, and we'll add you to the attendance list.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Stephen. First item is zoning map amendment to place portions of properties on Bartlett Farm Road currently located in the residential commercial 2 RC2 district into the commercial neighborhood CN district. Portions of properties on Bartlett Farm Road currently located in the limited use general LG2 district, LUG2 district into the commercial neighborhood district, and placing the property located on Bartlett Farm Road currently located in the residential commercial 2 R2 district into the limited use general LUG2 district. Megan or Leslie, would you like to say anything before Mr. Bartlett speaks on this?
Sure. So Mr. Bartlett did provide responses to the questionnaire, which I thought were very thorough. I hope you've had a chance to take a look at those. As he put in his responses, this article, although it is a citizen petition, does achieve a master plan goal of removing the RC2 zoning district in that area and replacing it with CN. They are doing some I guess zoning exchanges, if you will, if you look at the map. And I think the overall reduction, as we've calculated it, is about 5 lots. And we recommend support for this article.
Thank you. Mr. Bartlett, if you could unmute yourself, or maybe Megan will help you do that. Let me just say to begin with, all of us on the island appreciate so much your family's efforts to keep us fed and happy to the degree that's possible in the midst of the pandemic, and we appreciate your taking time out to be here today.
Well, thank you. So this is just something that, as we had a large chunk, I guess, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We had a large chunk of RC2, and as we kind of follow the planning process, we knew that would have to get converted over something per the 2009 master plan. I was trying to get something together to do this as a town supported warrant article, but ran out of time this fall. And then when the warrant got opened up again, as town meeting got pushed back, I figured I would just try to submit something. Again, this isn't something that it is ending up being a reduction due to the increased minimum lot size in CN as opposed to RC2. But we're really just looking to normalize some stuff as we've done some, estate and other type of planning over the years. And I don't know, we think it makes sense.
Thank you. I'm going to ask whether anybody on the board has a question for you, Mr. Bartlett.
Fritz?
Chris.
Just I have a general question. I mean, from the map, I've been out there enough that I kind of know where all of this seems to be. But what's the I mean, the Bulls won't be happy, but what's the overall plan for the area in green that's shown? Is it a plan or is it a long-term?
Well, I didn't necessarily submit this because we have some sort of master building plan that we're trying to embark on in the next 6 months or 6 years or anything like that. It's really just one of these things that I know is on the horizon, and I know that it's going to get changed through the planning process one way or the other. And also just trying to legitimize the existing supermarket or farm stand or whatever you want to call it into an allowed use. Just generally having a longer, we've been around for 175 years. This is just the next stage of land planning, for the farm and for the family.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dave Iverson.
Not necessarily a question for John, but is there and I couldn't find one, a map that shows the zoning changes? Did you send that out and I just missed it, Megan? You the best.
Megan, do you want to spotlight any part of that? Or Dave, did you have particular questions?
No, it's easier
You
for
want
me
to see it, right?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it. I just like to see it.
No, that's a good plan to do that. That's why we try to do that. I'm also going to note, Megan, I know you're doing 7 things here at once, but I note that Campbell Sutton, another of our alternates, is now here, so we should log her in as attending at this point. Mr. Bartlett, anything you want to say about that map other than what you said already?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Happy to ask other or answer other questions, but
Anybody else on the board with a question?
Not a
John.
question, just a comment, Madam
Yeah.
Chair. I think it's something that the town might have sponsored and proposed in the future anyway. I don't think it's out of the question to kind of legitimate to make the use already that's in existence that has no, I don't think there's any jeopardy of losing that, just to make it to be current in the zoning, but also looking at what they're proposing to get out of the RC2, which has been something that we've been wanting to do as a town for quite a few number of years now. We're actually, the article being proposed by the citizen is really keeping in tradition of what we're trying to accomplish. So I don't see anything really negative about this. If anything, you're looking at an RC2 going to the Lug 2 on the opposite side of the street, which is actually reducing the possibility for commercial and subdivision there to make 80,000 square foot lots. So I think it's in keeping with what we're trying to do as a town, and I would endorse this.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure if any of those of you others in attendance would like to speak to this matter, but this is a public hearing, so this is your opportunity to do so if you'd like to, and you can hit the button at the bottom of your screen and show us that you'd like to raise your hand. We'll call on you if you do have a comment.
Madam Chair, this is Emily Molden. I don't actually see the raise hand button in here as a
Okay.
participant, but just a sort of a comment / question. I had reviewed the packet, and I don't actually think that Mr. Bartlett's answers to the questions had been included in the packet, or at least
It went out earlier today, Emily. I'm sorry. I think it was sent out separately.
Oh, okay. Well, that sort of explains that. So I just hadn't had an opportunity to review that. So I appreciate Leslie's comments and John's comments on what's being proposed, just to help me wrap my head around the changes. And it definitely seems like the transition from RC2 or out of RC2 makes sense for this area. And then just to sort of reconfirm what the overall change in potential lots would be from this change, it sounds like there would be a net reduction. And looking at the map, specifically those areas that are proposed to move from Lug 2 down to CN, like the portions of 19 Bartlett Farm Road, I guess that must balance out with the piece across the street that's moving from RC2 into Lug 2. So it sounds as though maybe if I could just have staff or John just repeat again what the net change will be in potential lots out there just for the future, that would be helpful. Thank you.
So we calculated a net reduction of about 5 lots.
Great. Thank you for repeating that. I appreciate it.
And for anybody, I don't know if your display is the same as mine, but if anybody does want to raise a hand, you're all on the panelist list now. So it's displaying on my right hand side of the faces, and it has at the very bottom of the list of who's in attendance, raise hand. So that's how you can raise a hand. I don't see anybody else with a raised hand, so I'm going to see if members of the board like to close the hearing or if there's other comments. Fritz?
Propose to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
John seconded. Roll call. Fritz?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Judith? Aye. Okay, is there a motion on the merits?
I'd propose that we make a favorable motion, a favorable action, vote to take favorable action on this proposal.
Thank you,
I'll
Fritz.
second.
John seconds. Any further discussion? Then roll call, Fritz,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Judith, aye. Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. We appreciate that. So you'll have a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next item is zoning map amendment to place property at 18 Evergreen Way, currently located in the limited use general 1 log 1 district into the residential 40 R40 district. Leslie or Megan, would you like to provide an overview? And then I think this is Mr. Ryder's.
This is Linda Williams and Brian Ryder are here.
Okay. Let me just see if there's a staff overview that you'd like to offer, Megan or Leslie. If not, we can go right to the applicant.
So this particular article is proposing to rezone the property from LUG1 to R40, which is 40,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet. The R40 change does provide a minor frontage reduction from 100 feet to 75 and a ground cover increase from 7% to 10%. So I'm not sure that this would allow for any additional subdivision. It may allow for one lot. I haven't seen a plan that proves that. It's barely over the minimum lot size in LUG2 right now, but it is surrounded on two sides by properties that are in R40. And I'll point out that this neighborhood has been evolving. You know, it used to be very rural in character, and times have changed since that was approved in the 90s. And now it's surrounded by much more dense development, namely the Richmond projects that are nearby. And also within this same subdivision, there are half-acre lots that are effectively developed as 10,000 square foot lots. So, you know, the reduction here is consistent with the rest of the neighborhood and the surrounding area.
Could you put up the map, Megan, if you don't mind? Leslie, to follow on that, the question about whether it's subdividable or not, I know when I talked briefly to Nat yesterday, since he wasn't able to be here today, he asked a question about that too. Just so everybody's aware, what would need to happen before there could be a subdivision?
So if the lot is dividable, it would require an approval required subdivision. And I don't know that they have enough land area extra to do that because it's just a little over 80,000 square feet. So that would be for the surveyor to figure out. And I don't know if the owner has looked into that or not, but an AR subdivision would be necessary.
I see Fritz.
Yeah, I'm not questioning anything. I'm just noting that in the warrant article, the memo in response to our questions would indicate that certainly the owner, at least presently, believes that it would create an additional lot. I'm simply reading it, so I don't have a comment.
When we turn to him, we'll ask that. Before we do that, there may be other questions. I wondered if there could be an explanation of what the difference between the yellow and the white is on the plat.
I can explain that if you'd like me to, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Ms. Williams.
Across the street used to be also in the lug zones. They are now R40. The lots.
I'm sorry, Linda, when you say across the street, across Evergreen.
North of Evergreen. That whole section has been gradually changed almost one at a time. The pieces on the left, I think Leslie was talking about, those are lots that are in cooperatives. This is a very strange subdivision set up many years ago, 30 plus years ago, where some of these lots had the benefit of what existed at the time as co-op lots. You can see those going around to the left up the curve. Stuff to the right has been all changed to R40. We did a couple of last year, a couple the year before that. They're all changing over to R40 now because water and sewer are available in that subdivision now where they didn't used to be for a large percentage of it. There are, I believe, 7 lots to the right, to the east towards the airport, and the airport's right to that right. Going from there over that will probably come in next year as a group and change to R40. As Leslie was saying, the density has changed. To the west is Richmond. Richmond also owns several lots where you see vacancies right now where they're selling them off and people are building on them. The guy immediately to the west of the purple, Leiden's property did exactly the same thing, came in, went to R40 and was able to subdivide. I believe he had to pick up a slight frontage piece from the lot next door, but I can't remember exactly how that worked out, but the lots were basically the same. So he may or may not be able to subdivide it, but it may be a question of just picking up 2 or 3 feet from the neighbor like Jim Leiden did. So they're beginning to go down as dominoes down that whole strip, but I think we're going to look at that whole strip next year because a lot of them are in the same boat. They're sort of an outlier now because the whole subdivision has changed except for those lots. So this is a standalone because he put it in on his own. So it's not going to gain him much more than anybody else across the street or to his west has.
Let me ask if Mr. Ryder, welcome to the hearing. I don't know if you've been to hearings like this before, but we appreciate your being here to share your proposal with us and wondered if you'd like to comment on any aspect of this. I think we had a question for Mr. McClure about what basis may exist to think that you would be able to subdivide or how you may have analyzed that so far.
You have to unmute, Brian.
You're unmuted now. Say something and we'll let you know we can hear you.
Brian, you have to hook up to your computers or your phone's volume.
We may be hearing a little bit of something coming from you. Would you like to say something, Mr. Ryder?
I don't think he's on his computer's speakers, Judith.
Okay. But so is he hearing any of this, Linda? Or are you in touch
If he
with
doesn't
him?
have his speakers on, I'm not sure he can hear us as well as speak to us. I'll have to call him on the cell phone.
Are you going to do that?
Yeah, I'm going to call him right this second. But
Okay.
it's, I believe, Leslie, you can talk to what Jim Leiden did to get his subdivision, which is the same lot as Brian, same size, same setup. But I think Leslie or Megan can talk to what happened with his.
Okay, but let me just sweep the group too to see if there's other questions to ask him if he's going to have to connect here. I see
They
John.
can't hear you because you're not on your computer speakers.
Madam Chair, first
Yes,
for point of
Yes,
order,
you have to
I
hook-
just wanted to disclose I am I'm not an abutter, but I
Otherwise,
do
you can't
have ownership in a parcel that's down the street. I didn't get an abutter's notice or anything. I believe I'm beyond the 500 feet, but I just wanted to point that out before I make any kind of comments.
Speakers.
Okay,
If I don't have a vested interest, nothing of that sort. I just wanted to disclose that before I
Thank you.
comment on anything.
thank you, John.
He's going to log out and come back in again and then hit
Okay.
use computer speakers if that works.
Okay, we'll see about that. Campbell, I saw your hand up and I don't know if it's down now, but maybe you still had a question?
Yeah,
comment?
just since we had some time, Linda had referenced that area to the east, I believe, going to R40 as well. And I'm just wondering if that's on the radar for the planning board. And the reason I ask is over time, I have tended to sort of move away from the concept of citizens petitions, rezoning lot by lot. If there's, if it's something that the planning board is looking at, I think when we're talking about changing the character of larger areas, it shouldn't be one property based on an individual at a time, but speak more to the character of the neighborhood where the planning board sees it going, that kind of thing. So I was just curious on that.
That's very helpful comment, Campbell, and maybe a related question for Leslie and Megan while we're waiting for Mr. Ryder to try to connect again. If there's going to be possibly changes in that whole area, from what you said, Leslie, you seem to sound as though the adjacent lots, the 7 remaining lots, would likely be subject to rezoning at some point, given the availability of water and sewer and all. Should we be dealing with all those together as a block and maybe taking a look at that next year, as opposed to proceeding a piece at a time here?
Well, actually, Ms. Williams is the one that said that rezoning that area was being considered, and I believe that's maybe by her or by other citizens. I mean, that's not on a list that I have to present to the planning board. I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable. It's just, we had talked about rezoning that area several years ago, and we did some rezonings. And at the time, the people who lived there weren't interested. So I think as, time has gone on, and while other changes around them have been taking place, their opinion on that may have changed.
It has changed, Madam Chairman.
Linda, if you don't mind, let me just be sure we've heard everything Leslie wanted to say.
Okay.
So I don't think, if the board's inclined to rezone this, doing it as sort of a one-off is a bad thing. I mean, citizens have a right to come in and ask for, consideration for their property to be rezoned. And I think this particular request is reasonable and consistent with the surrounding area.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
John?
I'm just looking at this, and from my personal standpoint, I'm looking at it as not being so much of a build out or subdivision. The good thing is it is a direct abutter to what's already zoned R40, and across the street, as I'm seeing it, it is R40. So it's not like a individual lot that stands out as an island inside of a zoning area. We're looking at it going from an area where you're having it's lug 1, which is really 40,000 square feet, and we're going to an R40, 40,000 square feet. So the acreage or the land isn't really necessarily changing. The only thing that's really significant is maybe 7% to 10% ground cover. And if I'm not mistaken, some of the lots that are further down have already had rear lot subdivisions, which in essence is almost like 2 lots anyway. I think why this kind of stopped maybe was because there's a private sewer line there, if I'm not mistaken, but not necessarily a public, that there's been talk from buildings that were put in there that they might be able to work out something to get rid of the septics and tap into that sewer. So actually, I think that's not a bad thing to do out there, because the rest of the entire area is all sewer on Daffodil and Evergreen, carrying to where it connects to Daffodil. So if this was something that was just a spot zone on the middle of something, I think that we would have more issues with it. And not that it's going to happen or it won't or will not happen maybe next year with an article to maybe incorporate those other lots if there was an interest in the neighborhood. But even if that continued, we're looking at really kind of filling in pieces. So it could remain the same or not. But this particular lot, I don't have too much of an issue with it, even if it were to go to the R40, and whether he is able to subdivide it or not based on the A&R and frontage, I don't think it's going to change really the makeup of the neighborhood. I think it already has a building, a garage, a house on it that's spread out throughout the lot, as I'm seeing it on the map. So even if it were to go, and I don't like to say the worst case, it's not a bad case. If it were to get subdivided, the ground cover, I don't know, is going to change that significantly, where it would be an outcast to the neighborhood. I think it would conform. So that's just my 2 cents.
Leslie, one other follow-up on that, just to be clear, is there a difference in subdivision potential depending on whether it stays as it is or it is moved to R40? Because I thought that was part of the point, that was what Fritz was trying to ask about too, I think, when we get back to Mr. Ryder.
So the minimum frontage is reduced going from LUG1 to R40. So LUG1 requires 100 feet and R40 requires 75. So that would make any future subdivision potential more likely.
Okay, thank you. Anybody, Linda, did you want to say something further, or Mr. Ryder, are you connected now, I hope, perhaps?
I just have one follow-up to that. Leiden next door did do a rear lot subdivision, just to give you that. Obviously, these are very narrow, long lots. And he was able to subdivide, but he did do a rear lot subdivision, I believe, next door. And that would be the only potential for Ryder's property, is to do a rear lot subdivision. But Leslie's correct. That dropping from 100 to 75 feet may give him that potential. But as I say, a lot of the other lots that have gone to R40 that were 2-acre lots have already subdivided, and we have a bunch of those co-ops in there, which have effectively reduced 20,000 square foot lots across the street to the northwest into 2 lots, basically. It's an anomaly on the island.
Linda, are you in phone contact with Mr. Bartlett now? The display shows the drop-down display.
He's having a problem from the office. He just texted me.
Okay.
We are illiterate. He said we're illiterate in this office as to how to get on the speaker. He could hear you, but he could not actually talk.
Okay. Do you have an
I can put him
answer?
on my phone, Judith, if you want. I can put him on my phone and he can talk through my computer.
That might be the best.
Okay, let me try that. I've had to do that before. All right, I'm going to put you on my phone and you can talk into
a
my
word,
computer.
Mr. Ryder, are you there?
Madam Chair.
Oh, here he is on my phone.
How are you? Thanks for sticking with us here. We wanted to give you the chance to say anything you wanted to, but we had a couple of questions on our end. Did you want to say anything yourself first?
Well, basically, I'm trying to simulate what my neighbor did for a future potential rear lot subdivision for my 2 children. That's the whole reasoning for doing this.
And there was a question earlier that I don't know if you heard it.
Hold on a second, Brian. Turn your computer off. You're getting feedback. Turn the computer feed off in your office.
How's that?
All right, there you go.
We had a question earlier about how much, say, surveying work you may have had done already to determine whether, in fact, your submission made it sound like you were doing this primarily in order for the subdivision potential, but we don't really have enough information, documentation to tell at this point whether in fact it would be subdividable, because we don't have the specifics that a surveyor would have. Just wondered if you have any more explanation about that.
You know, I haven't gone too far with the surveyor yet, just the expense of that alone, until I can be sure that I can get it rezoned, and then I would go from there. But basically keeping it similar in the neighborhood with my neighbors was something that I thought that would be fairly simple to do. And once I accomplished that, then I would look into the potential of a rear lot subdivision.
Okay, members of the board, there were several other questions. Fritz, I think that was pretty much what you would ask, but you may have follow-up, or there may be questions from others. Ladies and gentlemen who are here, there's only a handful of you left, but Emily Molden, I see your hand up. I was about to say anybody in the public who would like to speak to this matter is invited to do so, and I recognize Emily Molden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Emily Molden here for the Nantucket Land Council. Just a couple of thoughts and things that I wanted to bring up. I certainly would agree with what Ms. Sutton said regarding the importance of really considering these areas on a larger scale rather than lot by lot whenever possible. I understand that this is a standalone request. Thinking a little bit more about that area, I realize that there are properties across the street and adjacent to the west that are already zoned R40, but certainly the area to the south of there is all lug 2. And this again has been a bit of a transition zone that has been starting to turn into R40, which doesn't necessarily increase subdivision potential in all of the lots, but definitely ground cover and increased density. And just to be clear, I know that sewer may be out there, but I know that there are also some separate requests before town meeting to include these properties, and I think the rest on the street, in the sewer district, because they're currently not included in the sewer district. And looking at the wastewater management plan update from 2020, they certainly were not identified as being particular needs areas. So I do just think it's important to consider that and realize that that is also potentially additional capacity going in there. And I know that's not necessarily a direct planning board issue. The other thing that I just wanted to raise was, as far as the subdivision potential, I know that on the lot to the east, I think there's a smaller undersized lot. I don't know if that one was a result of a rear lot subdivision or if that was maybe a covenant lot that was created. But as far as creating additional lots and subdivision along here, I also just want to remind the planning board that that covenant lot provision still enables all of these property owners to create another lot on their property. And there is the allowance in the bylaw for those to be used for family members as well. So I just think that it's important to keep that in mind as far as maintaining that provision that eventually would be more likely to be utilized for year-round and or affordable housing into the future as well. I think that that's important for you guys to keep in mind when you're considering these requests. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public who hasn't spoken who'd like to speak? Linda, I thought you might want to respond before we close the hearing.
Yeah, I understand the Land Council's position on a lot of things. Not in year-round, already developed neighborhoods, no, I don't. I think they should save their powder for areas that really are open and should stay open or have an impact. But this is
going to ask, is the process and dynamics of the meeting a point that I think we're talking about the merits. I don't really
I'll go back to the merits.
Having people tell each other what they're supposed to be doing. I let that go, but that's all we're going to do with that today, okay?
Fine, but I think the board needs to take into account the equities in this neighborhood. This is already going down that road. Several of the people east of him have come in individually, Steve Murphy, the Polchanises. They're all coming in on their own because the planning board has not really looked at the subdivision that intensely over the years because it's such an odd mixture of R5, R20, R40, LUG1. It's kind of a mishmash. And so it's people have taken it under themselves after it started to get really developed there. And Richmond came in. They own several lots that they were selling on Evergreen to the west of this property. That the whole neighborhood has changed and it's almost exclusively year round now and
And
developed.
I'm sandwiched right between two lots that I've been able to rezone. I'm in between two that you mentioned.
So it's an interesting kind of a neighborhood. It's and doing it one lot at a time, I agree, is kind of a pain in the butt for everybody, but that's the way it's gone so far over the last 10 years. And so I have talked to some of the guys to the east of him, and I expect we'll have a heavier conversation about those 7 that remain because the sewer is right in front of them now, coming down Daffy.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thanks, Mr. Ryder. Anything else you want to say
Hold on.
before we close the hearing? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Make that motion.
Second.
Dave voted and moved
John
and John seconded. Fritz, were you wanting to say something before we?
No, I was just unmuting, getting ready.
Okay, thank you. Roll call. Fritz, you go first.
Yes,
John,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Judith, aye. Okay, the hearing is closed. Further discussion. I just wanted to offer the thought, this one makes me think a little bit about Bayberry last year. Remember when we tried to balance out what to do, and then gradually it created like dominoes that people started moving to want to have smaller lots or to subdivide or to put in freeze plans or whatever. And I'm just wondering about whether the best thing is to proceed now or to take no position and flag this for more comprehensive review to add it to Leslie's list for the year ahead as a possible planning board matter where we'd hear from everybody together. That's I'm just curious if others have
Madam Chair, if I
better
may.
wisdom than that. John.
Yeah, because we don't have any clear indication of what the other neighbors are going to do, and we're just assuming that they're going to be on board, as Linda was saying, the general consensus for the future. I think we really should be concentrating on this as one particular lot, especially since it's an adjacent and to other areas that conform to what they're looking to do. So although I definitely see your point and the merits in that, I'm just trying to be conscious of the homeowners, plan, and because we might want to put it off another year, maybe that might affect what his timing is going to be as far as getting surveyors and things and pointing him in his direction. I do want to point out, regardless of whether we give it a positive, negative, or no action, it still has to go before the town to be voted on and could be defeated or approved at town meeting. So I would really just like to concentrate on this one, and whether it passes or it gets positive or not. I would say I don't want to look ahead at the other lots because we might find that people down the street there don't want to rezone, and then I think we'd be making a mountain in a molehill without any cause.
Thank you. Dave.
Just a couple things. Where exactly does the sewer end on this road? Is it end in front of the property we're talking about, Brian's property, or?
Yeah, if I may, Madam Chair, comment only because, as I said, I have property that is farther down the road on Evergreen. I believe the actual run ends around 28 Evergreen. So it's up the road. It's not, there is a private line that runs through, but I think the public line ends up the street.
It actually, John, to clarify, Madam
Oh,
Chairman, through
Linda,
you, I know where it ends.
Just a second, I'd honestly prefer to ask staff to answer this, if they are able to do that. Megan, I think I see your hand, or Leslie.
I'm not exactly sure where the line ends, but I know the properties on the opposite side of the street are in the district. And several people in that neighborhood have contacted me recently about connecting to the sewer. So I think there is some movement in the neighborhood to add more homes to the sewer district. And I'll point out, I don't know why these particular properties aren't included in the district now, and the ones on the opposite side of the street are. From a planning perspective, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're going to run the line in the street, why not open it up to properties on both sides? And these properties are clearly in the wellhead recharge district. So connecting them to sewer makes a lot of sense.
The sewer's in front of his house, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Linda. I closed the public hearing, so I'm trying not to have
I know.
evidence coming in outside of that other than from staff. So I'm not trying to give anybody a hard time. Dave?
And if you look down the street to the 7 properties, I mean, Brian is actually one of the few that hasn't already subdivided his lot. He's sandwiched between 2. Farther down towards Airport Road, there's numerous subdivisions on this road already. I think it's inevitable going to be an R40 neighborhood. So I mean, I don't really have a problem. I hate to do a one-off. It would be nice just to have everyone join in and go that way. But I mean, I think at this point, most of the lots are already subdivided. And even though it's in a lug zoning district, it's not looking like it.
I think John spoke, you spoke, Fritz. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to say.
Nothing further.
Okay, Stephen and Campbell, did either of you have something you want to add?
No, Madam Chair, I think a lot of bases covered there.
Okay, thank you. Campbell?
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep somehow everything freezes, comes and goes. So
Yeah,
something.
no problem. It just, I wanted to be sure anybody who had something they wanted to say from the board could do that. You spoke earlier, Stephen hadn't, so I'm just, maybe I froze you again. Okay, well, we closed the public hearing. Is there a motion on the merits?
I would make a motion to endorse the zone change from lug 1 to R40.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, ready to vote? John?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Judith? No, I really think it should be treated as a block. I understand the competing views, but that's a majority in any event to give it an affirmative recommendation. So thank you, Mr. Ryder. Thank you, Ms. Williams.
We're still here.
Yes, I know, but I'm just moving on to the next one. I don't know. I know there's a Miss Ryder. I didn't know if Mr. Ryder is involved in the next one too. This is zoning map amendment to place properties at 8 and 10 Chatham Road, currently located in the limited use general lug 1 district to residential 20 district, and to remove the properties from the country overlay district and place them in the town overlay district. I would simply ask staff to kind of remind us, we acted on a couple of related matters having to do with the Pulpus Road side.
Mhm.
of that at the last meeting, and it was also a little confusing because the documentation refers, there's like two versions, one having to do with R20 and one having to do with VR, I think. But Leslie, do you want to summarize this, how this compares?
Sure. So just to go back to the last meeting, you did give an article, a positive recommendation to change the properties south of this that are zoned VR. You gave a positive recommendation to place those in the R20 district. So the article that you're considering today is to place these two properties, 8 and 10 Chatham Road, in the R20 district as well. They're currently in LUG 1. 10 Chatham Road would not have any subdivision potential. It's actually pre-existing non-conforming now. 8 Chatham Road, which is vacant, could be divided into 2 or possibly 3 lots.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board before I go to Ms. Williams? Not seeing any. Ms. Williams, would you like to comment?
Okay, this is this whole area between Sandwich and Chatham were a lot of Ryder family members. Brian Ryder's mother still lives in 10. And Leslie said that's only, I looked at it, it's just over 20,000 square feet. So it is non-conforming. Her house is there. And because you guys gave us a positive recommendation to go from VR to R20, their previous article, as Leslie said, you gave a take no action on because he couldn't be out there in VR by himself. So they put in this article to track ours to go to R20 and go into the town. I believe the Ryder family, because there's inheritance issues going on here, there's several children, and they have come into possession of this property now. They wanted to only subdivide it into 2 lots. They would be oversized at over 30,000 apiece. And so they don't want the 3. They're willing to sign a stipulation with the planning board that they would only be 2. Water and sewer are available. And if you look at the map, to the northeast of Mrs. Ryder's property, that's a non-conforming lot. To the northwest, only 1 lot is an acre. Otherwise, they're all underneath. They're all like 13,000, 16,000, 17,000 of these lots on the northwest side fronting on Monomoy Road. A majority of the lots on Monomoy Road are under an acre. So the properties on the west side of Monomoy Road are much larger. They also paid for the sewer up there. So it's not going to create an anomaly to have 2 30,000 square foot lots behind lots that are 13,000, 17,000, 36,000, all non-conforming. Probably, again, the planning board should look at a lot of this area closely, because zoning under the state statute 40A is you're supposed to sort of mirror the pattern of development underneath it. And it was LUG 1, 2, and 3 out there because nobody really lived out there until the last 30 or 40 years. So he's just asking to track our VR, our R20, subdivide it into 2 oversized lots in the R20 and go into the town district with the rest of us who are on sewer and water as well. And his mother's lot would become conforming at that point. I don't know if Brian has anything to add.
Yes, Madam Chair. All I wanted to say is I'm speaking for my mother. At this point, she is still the owner of both 8 and 10 Chatham Road. My dad passed last year, and he literally, this is just under an acre and a half. 8 Chatham Road is just under an acre and a half, and there's no building on it. He really just had his vegetable garden on this lot for decades. And all we're trying to do from an inheritance point of view is just, like Linda said, just split it into 2 lots to be used by the children of the family in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Members of the board, do you have further questions? Otherwise, I'm going to open the public hearing and invite anybody else who's a member of the public who would like to speak. This is your opportunity. You can see, I hope, the participant list, and at the bottom it says, raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Emily Molden, I recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Emily Molden, I have a sort of a procedural question first, and then I have some other comments and concerns. I was just curious, I don't remember seeing the article proposing the change from Lug 1 to R20 in the original citizen submissions. And so I'm just a little bit confused about where that came from and if it is its own standalone article and when it was included, or maybe it was part of the second submission and I just had overlooked it. But I did see the one for VR, but was the R20 also in there?
Second submission.
Linda, if you don't mind, I'm calling on Leslie.
It was in the second round of citizen petitions.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so I see this area as being one of concern. Clearly, there was quite a bit of discussion about the adjacent lots on Pulpus Road and Chatham over the last couple of years. And I know the board gave a positive recommendation to change those and move them into the town overlay. This is obviously the tip of a large Lug 1 area. And as Ms. Williams said, many of these lots are non-conforming, and I just see this as being the beginning of a number of potential future requests to continue to expand the town district and change zoning in a way that will increase ground cover potential. This particular lot clearly has some subdivision potential, or one of them does, 8 Chatham. And again, I would just say that I understand the family has some concerns and some needs, but the bylaw already has a provision that enables this lot to be divided for family members. And obviously the limitation is that at some point in the future, if it's going to go to someone else, it would have to become a covenant lot. But that's why that's in the bylaw, is so that these lots can be divided for family members. I also just wanted to point out that this particular area is directly above the creeks. And so any increase in impervious surfaces and ground cover, landscaping potential is definitely more of a concern as far as impacts to the surrounding area. And I definitely think that it would set a precedent that would have some ramifications beyond these 2 lots in the rest of Monomoy. So I would really request the planning board to consider this one carefully, and I hope that you don't give it a positive recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the board, do you have further questions or comments? I understand Ms. Williams will want to comment before we're done, but I'm just checking. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak at this point. So I think we can move to close here pretty soon. But if you have questions, particularly if they're for Ms. Williams or Mr. Ryder, this might be the time to ask them. Anybody with questions? Are you ready to close the public hearing?
Will you comment before that, or?
Are you going to speak, or do you want if Mr. Ryder's going to speak? If it's anything by way of evidence, it should be before we close the hearing.
Okay, it's just 10 would become conforming. I can't, again, like Evergreen, can't speak for everybody else. He's in his office, so that's why he's got feedback. But they're going to have to look at it, because as I said before, having dealt with zoning since 1983, I see it in my sleep. The tenet is to have zoning reflect what's underlying. And this is a sort of an area that's been sort of overlooked because it's Monomoy. We just sort of left it alone all these years. And it really does need to be looked at, since they do now have water and sewer, which they didn't forever until even a couple of years ago, they put it in. So it has changed. The development has changed. It's increased out there. And I think the planning board in the overall should take a look at rezoning at least the east side of it. But we're just talking about 2 lots that are now butting up right against what is going to R20 if it passes at town meeting. And it's surrounded by lots that are even smaller than his mother's lot and the 2 30,000 plus square foot lots that are going to be created from this on water and sewer. I think it's something that should be considered favorably. I don't know if Brian has anything to add. Do you, Brian?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
There
Okay.
you are.
I had to get my laptop. I apologize for
good
the
work.
I'm
audio.
hanging up on you now.
Yes, please. Thank you, Linda. All I really want to say, Madam Chair, and to everybody is, you know, my dad's a native of Nantucket. I'm a native of Nantucket. All we're trying to do with this literally is keep natives, a native family on the island. By dividing it into 2 lots, that meets that objective in regards to the siblings that are interested in living on Nantucket. We're not looking to do a subdivision for sale or anything else. And the way I look at the map, and I do not know all the ins and outs of all of this, but the way I look at the map is even subdividing this 1.5 acre lot into 2 3/4 acre lots, it matches everything that it abuts on Monomoy Road. It's larger than everything across the street. And there's other lots that were VR that are going to be in the same zoning on the same side of Chatham Road. So as a, you know, a long time, many generations of natives, we're just trying to keep the family here. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Thank you for being persistent with the technology too. We appreciate
Sorry
that.
for the delay.
No, not at all. We thank you for sticking
Chair?
with it. Yes, Dave Iverson.
Brian Phillip. And I guess, can we ask them to put a deed restriction on this? I mean, how does that work, Leslie?
So they have to volunteer to do it, which I believe he has. And you would make your positive motion to support the article. And in the meantime, Mr. Ryder's attorney would work with town council to craft a restriction. He would fully execute it. Town council would hold the restriction until the vote of town meeting, and then it would be recorded. It would be enforceable by the town. In the event the article does pass, then the restriction's not recorded and it's, you know, voided.
Could we give it a positive recommendation based on a deed restriction? Is that?
You could certainly put that in your comment that the property owners offered to restrict the number of lots and that factored into your recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
John?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's, Dave, thank you very much. You read my mind. Stop doing that.
He's got the next square to yours,
Mine.
out of his ear into yours.
Well, I also, I was curious about putting in a note, if we have that, and this is directed at Leslie through you, Madam Chair. Can we, as David says, make a recommendation, but note that for the articles so that note states that, so that the people at the town doesn't look, you know, at the town meeting doesn't look like we're approving this, knowing that it can get 3, there's a compromise to only get the 2, so that appears in the article to show, you know, the people at town meeting what they're voting on.
So your planning board comments, which you can attach to any article, are printed in the warrant following your motion. So if you gave this a positive motion and that was, you know, the reason why you did so, then we would include a comment for you to review ahead of time, but it would be printed in the warrant for everyone to be able to review.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to just go through the rest of the board to see if there's comments. We have to go back and close the hearing before we actually act. Fritz?
Well, just pursuing this, just so I understand it, if we give it basically what we're saying, subject to the limitation on 1 lot, and I guess that's well, when we said restriction, I guess I'm clarifying. When we were talking about a restriction, we're talking about a restriction as to the number of lots or the use by a family member, or both.
I think if I'm reading this correctly, we were looking at number 2 being non-conforming, so that wouldn't be affected. But the other lot, number 8, could be potentially into 3 lots. So we were going to be restricting it for future development to be only 2 lots. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's
So-
what I understood, yes.
And I would not recommend that you try to restrict the ownership of the properties. I mean, that really doesn't have any rational nexus to zoning. The number of lots certainly does, but who's using them and who owns them does not. So I think that would be a real issue.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Fritz.
so just a follow-up and reflecting, just following up on Emily's comment, is it correct that even that presently, without any change, that could be divided into 2 lots so long as the second lot is used by a family member?
Right now, the property could be divided using the secondary lot program.
Okay.
And through the secondary lot program, there's an exemption for qualified family members. But
Yeah.
just to go a little further with that, I mean, the petitioner has said that they're trying to do some estate planning and plan some equality. And I don't know that that would achieve the result that they're looking for in the long term.
But I did hear him say it's for a family member.
They won't agree to that.
Different.
I'm not sure that was clear, Fritz, and I don't know whether they can actually know. I mean, Mr. Brian Ryder is here, but he's got his mother who's still alive and other people, so it's hard to know people's expectations, how they could be held to that at this point. Just an observation. Let's see, others who haven't had a chance to weigh in. Stephen Welch, do you have a comment? Stephen, I'm not hearing, see you muting on and off. Let me ask Campbell and then see if we can hear you if you have something to say. Campbell, did you have anything to add? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing anything from them. I think we've had all the evidence, unless Fritz, you wanted to pursue that, to ask Linda or Mr. Brian Ryder further about the family issue at this point, but
I don't think we want to comment on that at this time, and I would ask the board not to try to put that on.
Linda, if you have anything else to say, I think we've heard summation here multiple times, but
Yep.
Last chance. Otherwise, I'm going to ask to close the hearing.
Unless Brian has something to add. I don't.
Oh, I want to make sure that I'm understanding everything correctly. When you say a family member, we're talking about 2 brothers within the family that are adults, and they're going to want it, evenly, two lots with the same potential, and I'm not really sure of all the rules and regulations of what you mean by, it's okay to do this with a family member or not, but what we're looking for are 2 lots with the same potential, and it's for 2 siblings within this family on land that's been in the family for decades. And
Mr. Ryder, I think that there were questions around that, but with advice from Leslie and everything, there probably would not be an inclination to try to comment in any way that I'm observing at this point among the board. So I don't think you need to, I think we got the point.
Okay.
As I understand where we are, it's that there would be, if you are willing to do this, to do what Ms. Snell said in terms of having your lawyer work with town council to put a restraint so that there is only 2 lots, not that there could be further subdivision beyond that. I think that's the main thing we're talking about, and I understood that to be agreeable to you. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We do not want any more than 2 lots.
Okay. Members of the board, are you ready to close the hearing?
Move to close.
Thank you, John. Fritz? Second?
Second, if he doesn't.
Okay,
All right, I couldn't get unmuted.
okay, sorry. John moved, Dave seconded. I'll start with Fritz, however. Fritz?
This is for the closure of the public
Oh,
meeting.
I'm closing the public hearing. Yeah, aye.
John?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Judith, aye. On the merits?
Comment first, Madam Chair.
Yes.
This is interesting. We already endorsed an area similar to this. I'm a little skeptical to force, a covenant or a restriction with a family member, only because it's not like a child or something like that. So I would be hesitant to do anything like that. Because you're talking about 2 brothers and equal value. It's very difficult to put a value on one at market and the other with restrictions. So I don't think that's a good idea. It's rare that we actually get a little bit of compromise where we're able to subdivide something into 3, and as a town to get it and record it, reduce it down to a 2. So that being said, in the future, if they don't do anything and it comes for review in 5 years or per se, and this passes or gets rezoned or for any number of reasons at town meeting, through a citizen article, et cetera, then we could be looking at 3 with a different owner. Maybe they realize they can't get what they want and they sell it as a big parcel, and then 3 years from now, another owner comes and subdivides into 3 at town meeting with an article. I think we have a chance to actually control a little bit of it. So I'm not sure how the rest of the board is, but I'm feeling a little bit more inclined to endorse with the restriction that, as Leslie stated, with town council to put forth and reduce it down to 2. At least we know what we're going to be getting.
Thank you, John. Are there further comments? Is there a motion on the merits?
As I just described, I would make a motion to endorse with town council, working with staff, to put a note in the town warrant article of our approval, noting that we're going to restrict it to 2 lots.
Deed restriction, John.
Deed restriction, that's what I'm, yes.
Linda, please. Leslie?
I just want, well, I would like for John's motion to be clear that that you're not restricting it. The owner has volunteered a restriction.
Thank you for the clarification, but yes, that's the content, what I meant. But yes, with the owner agreeing voluntarily to put a deed restriction on there.
Is there a
For 2
second?
lots.
Is there a second? Is there a second on John's motion? I would second it, but I'm in the chair.
Oh, I'm torn.
Well, do you want to talk about it further? Dave?
No, I mean, I will second it.
Nobody's forcing you to.
I just think that there's so much that could go wrong on this lot in the future, like John said, that I think that if we lock it down with a deed restriction, we're doing more good than we are bad. So I will second it.
I think that also addresses any concerns about the ground cover near the creek and other kinds of things like that too. So I think there's evidence in the discussion to support that for what that's worth. All right, are you ready to vote? Roll call, John,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, aye. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ryder.
Thank you very much. I'm still here.
Thank you,
Thank you
Ms.
very much.
Williams. We've got one more to go. Zoning
think
map
so.
amendment to place properties at 2 Mayflower Circle and 32 Evergreen Way, currently located in residential 20 R20 district, into residential 5 R5 district. Leslie.
I think people are having trouble with their mute today.
Oops, sorry about that. No trouble. I just forgot to hit the button. So on this one, I think this might be worthy of some kind of discussion similar to what we just had with the prior article. I mean, these are 2 half-acre lots. The proposal is to put them in a 5,000 square foot district, R5. That would allow significantly more density than any of the surrounding lots in this particular neighborhood. Across the street on Evergreen, those are in the half-acre district, and they're effectively developed as 10,000 square foot lots with a single dwelling unit because they're all co-ops. Behind, even on Richmond, that's a completely different neighborhood. And the lots that are in R5 on Evergreen are slightly larger than the minimum lot size. And that was discussed at length during the Richmond proposal. And a lot of the neighbors in this neighborhood were really concerned about adding density to Evergreen and Daffodil. So while I think, maybe some change to these properties is appropriate, allowing full redevelopment at R5 is a bit out of character.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, John.
This particular one I was noticed, so I'm obviously within the area, so I don't know if it's proper for me to comment on this particular one.
Out of an excess of caution, maybe I think maybe you'd want to pass.
Yeah, I'm fine. So should I just recuse or abstain?
I think if you recuse, we still have Leslie with 3 board members. This isn't the kind of thing that we call on alternates because it's not a permit decision.
So, Madam Chair, so the alternates don't act on zoning recommendations, but you still have 3 people. So you would
Right.
need to have.
That's sufficient.
Yeah.
A point of order, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Can we hold this till March then? I'd rather have more than 3 board members make the recommendation on this. I mean, that's just a question that has come up.
I'm sorry, Linda, I don't really see that's, I'm going to leave it to the other colleagues on the board, their preference here, but we've noticed it for today, and our March meeting has enough on the agenda. I don't think really that somebody gets to pick how many board members, as long as we're constituted legally. You can
Okay, that's
ask
fine.
that
I just had to ask. I was asked to ask.
You can ask it. You've asked it. Fritz or Dave, do you want to comment? Would you think it better to hold it over?
I would just assume do it now and be done with it.
Fritz? You're still muted. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I think we ought to vote.
Okay. All right.
Let me know when you're ready for me.
Okay. Go right ahead.
So with that, Madam Chair, I am going to recuse.
Okay, thank you, John. You can put your head on the desk and take a nap.
Now, putting a head on the desk, I've been on Zoom meetings since 10 o'clock this morning, straight through.
Well, you can too if you can talk loud through your nap.
It's crazy. I'm over Zoom, I can tell you that. If we can put the map up, Leslie or Megan, that would be helpful. Okay. This was discussed with Andrew, and he's the one who came up with this scenario. My client is the one to the top there with the two structures on it. They're willing to put a restriction on, as well as like what Brian just did, to 2 lots. That's it. We are lucky enough to have double frontage. We are on Mayflower as well as Evergreen. So we would have frontage on Mayflower for the one on the left, and we would have frontage on Evergreen on the one on the right. We don't want more than those 2 lots because we have enough frontage. It's questionable whether the lot to the south of us has enough frontage to subdivide at all. If not, just a rear lot subdivision, so to be 2 lots there. They would still be larger than the ones across the street. They're still going to be larger than the ones to the north of us. And they're still going to be larger than the ones on the yellow, which is all Richmond. So we actually back up to Richmond. We're all in pursuit of 6-foot fences at the moment. So at least in our respect, we're willing to put a covenant restriction on our lot. I can't speak to the other, as I said, but I don't think because of frontage requirements, he can't get any more than 2 out of his anyway, if he can get 2. So that's where we're coming from. Again, we're on water and sewer. We're already on water and sewer. We don't have to bring it to us. It's right there. And they're way oversized for the guys across the street and the guys to the north of us and the guys to the west of us. So we're basically literally surrounded by lots that are a fraction of the size of these 2 lots. They just were sort of holdover lots. The lot, at least with our lot, the one with the house and the cottage on it, were original lots. Walter Glowacki still owned them, and a member of his family still owned them until 4 or 5 months ago. So they moved houses in there long before 90% of these houses were even built. So they were just sort of holdover Glowacki lots, and the one to the south of us has been sold out of the family. And as I say, the one we have is just sold out recently to another person. And that's pretty much the story. We're sort of an outlier surrounded by smaller lots. So we've sort of effectively spot zoned ourselves. But in order to match something, we wanted to go to R5 because Andrew figured that we're bounded by R5, at least on the west and the south. And as I say, we'll agree to 2 lots on the Mayflower Evergreen side.
Thank you. Fritz or Dave, do you have questions you'd like to ask before I open the hearing?
Oh, by the way, Madam Chairman, one more thing. We are already in the sewer district, over the sewer overlay district.
Thank you. Fritz and Dave, do you have anything you want to ask before I open the hearing?
No.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are still there, thanks for sticking with us. If any of you would like to speak on this matter, please go to the participant breakdown and raise your hand. All right, I'm not seeing anybody. Let me go back to other folks, our alternates. Haven't had much luck communicating with you, but I see Campbell's hand is up, so let's hope.
Well,
Are you-
fine.
Oh, good. Good
I
work.
think a niche in the house that is letting me participate. So yay. This was one that sort of concerned me because, well, I realize the R5 is to the, I believe she said the south and the west. It also is, the R20 there has a very consolidated shape, seems like it fits in. And I feel like this sort of nudges R5 further in. And at some point, I believe there was discussion or something was said that just because you have like a 40B density, in your neighborhood, that should not be used to increase density outside of that approved 40B. And it just sort of begs the creep, yes, you do R5 and then just sort of like we're seeing going from, I believe it's Lug 1 to R40 up Evergreen. And I think all the things that were stated for that come into play here as far as sort of creating a new zoning piece, because the access isn't going to be through Richmond Group properties. The access is going to be on Evergreen and Mayflower, which will, increase density and traffic in those two areas. But that's just my current thought on it. I know it's a citizen's article, so we'll have an opportunity at town meeting too, but I just thought I'd say that now.
Thank you, Campbell. Stephen, if you can unmute, you're welcome to comment. He unmuted. Let's see if he can connect.
It's gremlins, Madam Chairman. It's gremlins.
It is. Nope, I'm sorry, Stephen, you're faithfully attending, but you're not, we're not hearing you. So, ladies and gentlemen, if there's anybody else in attendance here who'd like to speak, this is your time. Otherwise, we'll be closing the hearing in a moment.
One more comment before you do close it when you're ready.
Okay, just 1 second. I don't see anybody raising their hand. Linda.
It's not a 40B behind us. It's a subdivision. The 40B, there was a lot of the area right behind us, I believe, are single family homes. That's not the 40B. And I don't believe there's a 40B component in here in Richmond.
Thank you.
And across the street, as Leslie mentioned before, are the those co-ops. So they're already subdivided over there effectively.
Okay, folks, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Make that motion.
Second.
Thanks. Dave,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, aye. What's your pleasure?
I mean, I think that Campbell kind of, at least for me, stated the obvious, that I just fear that this will enable the creep of smaller zoning districts through the pie-shaped R20 that's in that neighborhood. And I think we need to put that off as long as we can.
Thank you. Fritz, would you like to comment?
I concur.
I agree as well, Dave. So is there a motion?
Make a motion to give it a negative recommendation.
Can I ask for take no action instead?
We heard you say it, even though I didn't call on you, but I don't see any takers on that.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Dave's motion is to give it a negative recommendation. Roll call vote, Dave.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Judith, aye. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Leslie, can you review what happens next?
Okay, so you have one outstanding public hearing. That's for a citizen petition that we had to re-advertise. It's a single parcel in Sconset. The request is from SR10 to go to SOH or SR1. So that is scheduled for your March 8th meeting. Everything else is, the public hearings have all been closed. You've made your recommendations. And I haven't heard from you all about any specific comments that you want to make, except for the Ryder article that you discussed today, 8 and 10 Chatham Road. I thought you may want to include a comment in your pool article.
Yes,
as well,
definitely.
as well as the comment that you included for the Atherton petition last year. I believe those comments are in your packet. I'm just
I think, Leslie, we wanted to beef up the statement on pools. I can try to write that and send you some language, but I think you have the extended discussion that we had, and I think you also know that the FinCom had issues about it last year, so I think we just want to be as crystal clear on our rationale as we can, and in particular also emphasize, I think, the things that were on my mind from our discussion related to maybe it's simpler if I just try to write something, but the effect on neighbors, the reason this is really emphasizing setbacks as trying to reach an appropriate balance, the fact that it's not the whole island, it's only a portion near the downtown, and there may be some other things. Megan, I don't know if we've got the notes from the meeting in which we discussed this, but if I'd suggest that we put this on for fuller discussion to be sure we are happy with exactly what we said, because I think that's going to be important to explain it.
So Chair, my suggestion would be that we include all the motions and draft comments in your packet for March 8th and have that as a discussion item if needed.
All right.
So that way people can review all the comments in advance. And if, they need changes, we can do that. I think that we are presenting your motions to the FinCom on March 15th. That date is not firm yet, but I think that's when it's going to be. So we have a little bit of time, but as soon as the warrant is finalized by the select board tonight, and I have a final version of it in Word, I'm going to get all of your motions inserted and comments that we have so far.
Thank you. Fritz, I see your hand.
Yes. I think last year at FinCom, the question was asked, and I think I would just, and I know Leslie had done some work in terms of number of lots in this area that might be affected. And I don't remember whether that was before or after we made the changes, but it might be helpful in the comment if we could make a statement of how many lots there are and how many of those lots are below 7,500 or 7,500 or below, whatever the appropriate language is, so that if the question is asked, how many lots would this affect, we have that answer.
Okay. I can get that information easily. So,
Okay.
Well, I mean, I can't whip it up right now, but
No.
easily.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other thoughts, suggestions for what we need to do at that March meeting? Okay, anything else?
Campbell has her hand up.
I'm sorry,
Campbell has her hand up.
Campbell.
Oh, hi, Judith. Thank you. So I just had a couple of things. One on the pool. The pools in Brant Point seem to keep coming up, Brant Point as a place. I don't know if it's appropriate, but somehow the flood zone should maybe be part of a point made regarding pools in that Brant Point area, because it is a low-lying area of high likelihood of flood capacity, and so it is not really appropriate for pools anyway. And the other thing I have that's totally disconnected from this is I'm wondering if when we're looking at lot divisions or the citizens petitions regarding that. And I really do appreciate the questionnaire they fill out, whether we add something in there about the sewer district. I'm just wondering, I know that in past meetings, Mr. Gray has said that, you know, they've identified lots and have so many bedrooms or something per those lots. Do you see what I mean? Trying to figure out when we're reducing the lot size, whether the sewer department has it in their plan that those, I don't know if I'm getting my idea out, but it has to do with trying to figure out if the new zoning or lot division is on the radar and appropriate for the sewer district that it's going into.
I'm not sure I fully understood what you were.
Okay, so one example would be, just out of the blue, would be like Evergreen, 18 Evergreen, that subdivision. And the question would be, how many bedrooms or bathrooms or sewer load is the sewer department expecting off from that lot?
Campbell, I appreciate the point, but I don't think that's for the planning board to
Okay.
be commenting on. If it's something that you'd suggest that Leslie or Megan convey to the sewer people and say there's at least one citizen who thinks it'd be good to include that. I just think that that's not something that has been part of our deliberations, and I don't feel like our staff has the wherewithal to try to pull that all together at this point. I appreciate your perspective. However, I also would say that when I went to the Civic League to give them an update on planning board articles and presented the swimming pool matter, somebody from Brant Point wanted to know why we were picking on Brant Point and why we were picking on swimming pools or words to that effect. And I explained that it wasn't against swimming pools generally, it was in particular areas. And I think if we were to want to add a comment specific to Brant Point, it would be important that the full board have weighed and discussed that. And since we didn't at the time, I think we'd be better off not going back with additional commentary that is supplemental of that type. What I was trying to say was we should really provide more of a summary of the discussion we did have, not that we should add things that we hadn't yet discussed, but
that makes sense. So
okay.
Thank you for your out.
Yes, Dave.
I mean, I think that most of Brant Point is going to be precluded from pools just for the 2-foot groundwater.
I would have thought so too.
Yeah, so I think that that's really a non-issue.
That doesn't mean those who wish they could don't regret they can't. But
that's true, but it's not our
no,
fault.
No,
We're not
exactly.
restricting them.
John or Fritz, anything you wanted to add?
No.
Or Stephen, if Stephen could talk, please, Stephen, write email to Leslie or some of us, and we'll try to take into account your thoughts as well. So if there's any other public comment, now would be the time. I think it's pretty much just us left here now. And
Emily has her hand up.
Emily, yes, Emily.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the opportunity to participate today. Just kind of a general thought or comment regarding the citizen warrant articles for zoning, and I guess the ones that the planning board's sponsoring as well. I just wondered if it's possible, or if it has been done before, to include a little bit more information in the warrant for the general public about what the proposed changes entail, as far as just kind of summarizing in some brief, pithy way, essentially what the questionnaire provides as far as information and change of ground cover or potential subdivision. I know that all that information is readily available online, but I just think for a lot of the public, doesn't feel that accessible. And so I don't know if this is something that's been discussed before or done in any way, but I just feel like it could be really helpful for those who are just reading through the warrant and trying to digest these proposed zoning changes to have a very clear takeaway of change of commercial use or subdivision potential, ground cover, et cetera. Just kind of a general thought to put out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie, you've managed this kind of stuff for quite a long time. I've wondered about the extent that there's supplemental material provided other than the raw material from the actual submissions of citizens. There's comments for certain matters, but not for all of them. I can imagine if you had to do plain English summaries for every article, you then get into back and forth editing with the proponents. You end up having to defend the summary. On the other hand, both Campbell's and Emily's comments suggest that it's hard for people to understand this. I don't know whether, for example, if we pulled together all the materials submitted to us, including the questions we ask ahead of time, into some sort of information packet, if that's ever worth considering, or if you have any views on this. I know you're very short-handed, so I know that factors into.
So, we post everything on the website from the time the citizen petitions come in through all the planning board hearings, all the staff reports, all the maps, the citizen questionnaire responses. I mean, all of that stuff is readily available on the website if people look for it. And then we also do the planning board report, which we've added, I think, since around 2011 to the back of the meeting, or excuse me, to the back of the warrant. So, that's mailed to everyone who gets a warrant. So that's available. We could look at adding in some additional information into the planning board report. Generally, we try to keep that to, a minimum to identify sort of the high points, like how does the article forward the master plan and things like that. But it's certainly something we could look at.
If you would just give it some thought before the March meeting, that doesn't have to go through the select board, does it? The planning board's own comments. So you've got a little more space on that. Thinking back, the Civic League leadership had asked me a year or so ago, they wanted to have a cost benefit analysis of every article of whatever. And I said, we ask these standard questions and here's what they are and here are the answers. So it's also hard to gauge different people's interest in the extent of what they need. So I think you should feel free if you think there's a potential to add a certain amount here to kind of push the planning board on what's most important, rather than assuming that we have any specific already in mind about how a slight expansion might look. And the town does its town annual report, right? But as I recall that, doesn't the town put a cap of like 2 pages on every department or board or something like that?
Well, yes, but the annual report is really geared more towards the business of the town, the function of the departments and revenue and that sort of thing. I mean, town administration does put together a voter's guide, and typically for the zoning section, we just refer everyone to the planning board's report. So we could include more information in the voter's guide. That's an option. So, something to think about, but we also have to balance it with, a lot of other demands as well. So we'll
Thank you.
give it some thought.
Emily Molden, I can't tell if this is your hand for the prior time or if you wanted to say something else.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did just want to add one thing, recognizing how time intensive this all is, and also honestly not recalling exactly what information the planning board report has contained in the past, but even just cutting and pasting the intensity regulations or for the different zones could be, I think, potentially helpful just to kind of have that in place was just the other thought that I had. Thank you.
I think that is included every year, the zoning districts. There's a chart, a certain amount of information, but I don't know how much more that would be relevant. And I guess I would also say any given year, the mix of citizen articles and board articles may differ. So I think there's probably a tendency to have a standard package of description of this is the way the zoning system is, what the basic zoning districts are, and some criteria about what goes with those districts. But I think we can't try to design this by committee, and we'll have to see what Leslie might tell us on the next pass come March 8th. So are we ready to adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks. Roll call, Fritz,
Aye.
John,
All right.
Dave,
Aye.
Judith, I. Thank you. See
you.
everybody.
Thank you all.
Have
Take
a
care.
nice weekend.
You guys do the same.